More great news today. Like I said in the other video, God has been smiling on us today and all week. If you haven't felt it, you just got to look around. Pay a little bit closer attention. Pray a little harder. But check this out. This is from the Supreme Court today announcing that they've decided. They say this employers, let me restart this. The Supreme Court says employers may opt out of the Affordable Care Act's birth control mandate over religious and or moral objections. What does that mean? Well, right off the bat, Robert Barnes, he's awesome. He does these live streams with Viva Fry, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and they're awesome. Together, they're talking about these laws and the intricacies of legal precedent, what it means going forward, who it actually affects. And so I figured since I have a subscription to WAPO, I might as well look at this. And I just wanted to kind of show what this actually means. So let's look at this. Supreme Court says employers are allowed to discriminate and not include contraceptives, like birth control, condoms, the pill, IUDs, all those things that the ACA said had to be covered by employers who offer healthcare, must also cover contraceptives. It's been battled for like 9 years or something. Well, let's get into it. This is by Robert Barnes. In the WAPO today, the Supreme Court ruled Wednesday that the Trump administration may allow employers and universities to opt out of the ACA requirement to provide contraceptive care because of religious and moral objections. Well, that's great because my boss doesn't provide condoms for me. I don't wear them. That's not why he doesn't, though. They don't have to. They shouldn't have to legally. If my boss says, I'm giving you access to healthcare through our office network, and it's cheaper for me to access it that way, and I can pay some out of my paycheck to have health. Hell yeah, that's what I'm doing. And that's what a lot of people do through their employer. If they are so given enough from their employer to do that. Now, I'm not going to say that every employer has to give health care, but if every employer is able to, that still doesn't mean, in my mind, that every employer should be required to also provide contraceptives. Condoms for men who say they're trans women now need female birth control, but for them that would be a condom. And I know that female condoms exist. I've never seen one in the real world other than in a health class, but assume that they would want those too. So now Wednesday's decision, this says, greatly expands the ability of employers to claim the exemption that the government estimates that it could mean 70 to 126,000 women could lose access to cost-free birth control. So not that they don't get birth control anymore. Everyone can go and get birth control. You can go and get it for free right now from a clinic that's subsidized by the government. But this is saying that employer-driven healthcare, employer-given healthcare, because that's really what it is, right? When they're bearing so much of the burden on your healthcare cost, they should not also be burdened with a moral or a religious objection to what they are having to provide for you, which is contraceptives. And this is the number that really grinds me. 70 to 126,000 women could lose access, is what it says. So hang on a second here. I need to know for the number's sake. So let's just average that, say 100,000 women over the 150 million women that we have in the country. That is infinitesimally small. That is infinitely a small number. It's a fraction of a percentage of the population that this is actually going to affect. So it's like 1% of 1% or whatever the number is, whatever that was, 6% of 1% or some odd crazy number. The point is, the population that's affected by whether or not their employer provides birth control is minute. It's almost non-existent. The point of this article is to prove, I think, that the court is upholding the idea that employers do not have to provide every little thing that a socialist claims in a law. The president creates, the past president, former president, Barack Hussein, the terrorist, the renegade, he says, hey, let's create the situation, let's create a scenario where we'll take all the money from all the people, and then we'll give it to the people who never had any money to begin with. And the Affordable Care Act isn't necessarily a bad thing by itself if you make it an opt-in and opt-out program, but it's not. So as soon as Trump is elected, he cuts the knees out. He says, first of all, you're able to opt out. That's a big one. So no individual mandate, no fine if you're not in it. That saves people about $800 a year. And second, he says now, through the Supreme Court, by having pushed on this hard enough, that now employers don't have to provide contraceptives. Well, what's the next shoe to drop? Well, employers are going to say, well, then I shouldn't have to provide this other thing, and I shouldn't have to provide this other piece. And they're going to pick the ACA apart and say, well, I morally object to this piece of it. Well, I religiously object. There's going to be an employer who says, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. I shouldn't have to cover major surgery. Hello? That's the next thing right around the corner, and I would support them because they shouldn't have to. Until now, quote, the court has taken a balanced approach. One does not allow the religious beliefs of some to overwhelm the rights of interests of others who do not share those beliefs, Ginsburg wrote. Because Ginsburg is the dissenter, the big dissenter. She says they're doing this to secure religious rights to the nth degree. No, bitch. They're doing this to secure religious rights, period. They should already be secured in the First Amendment. And actually, that's why the Supreme Court said, we're actually not going to rule on this. We're going to kick this back down to the appellate court and force them to disband the little injunction that they had against this. So Donald Trump says, hey, if you're a business that has a moral or a religious objection to providing for contraceptives, you don't have to. They took it to court. They, in this situation, create an injunction saying, no, you must stop all of them from cutting that. You have to continue those programs. And the court just said, nope, disband whatever you were just holding these people to. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993, a law that says the government must have a compelling reason for programs that substantially burden religious beliefs. And obviously that did not meet that standard. So what do we have? We have the Supreme Court siding with Trump yet again on something that's actually important. Now, a lot of people argued a couple weeks ago about the gay rights issue that was in the Supreme Court. That was a big win, if you didn't know. And people tried to say that Trump was upset. I don't think so. If you actually look at any of the gay rights agendas and issues that are current, Trump supports them all. The irony is that major Democratic candidates today and of yesteryear and of the not so recent past all didn't support any LGBT issues until it was politically expedient. So here you have the Supreme Court saying, if you are a religious or a moral person and you do not feel that your business as the employer should have to provide your employees contraceptives, you no longer have to. You're welcome. More good news this week, and this time coming from Robert Barnes at the Washington Post. So make sure you go and follow him on Instagram, on Twitter rather. Also follow me on Twitter. That's at America Floats. Make sure you like the video, comment on it, share it if you would, but most importantly, subscribe to the channel because you don't want to miss the important news that you don't see at 5 o'clock on Fox or even sometimes on late night. You're not going to see the important things like the ACA is being dismantled before our eyes in the Supreme Court. So pay attention, subscribe, like, comment, and share the video. And please, keep America floating.